Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Node Investor here. Man, it feels like forever since I've put a video out for you guys, and I apologize. It's just been crazy. It feels like, August 1st wasn't that long ago, but it feels like a long time ago. I pretty much pulled an all-nighter the night of, the fork happened at 5:30 a.m. my time, so I stayed up real late the night before, kind of preparing, setting up some trades. Woke up before the fork, and then it was kind of a non-event just because the BCash block time was so slow, and pretty much just drug out through the day. But it was not in vain, because there were a lot of altcoins that started pumping before the fork, which was a very bullish sign. So we'll go into some of those and kind of point out to some of the new leaders that are coming up. Remember what I told you guys before the big correction is, look out for those bottoming patterns. There will be a bottom. Be patient, hold tight, wait for the patterns to form themselves. And just in the last couple of days, man, a lot of those patterns are really clear. We've had several breakouts followed by some big moves to the upside on some of those. So let's get to it. Bitcoin just shy of $2,800. Ethereum still sitting tight at $225. Dash at $190 basically. Litecoin 42, just shy of $43. And I'll skip most of these others, but I will point out NEM. NEM has had a powerful move to the upside, back in the 20-cent range at 21.5 cents. So let's take a look at some of these charts here. First off, Bitcoin. What's Bitcoin doing? Oh, that's NEM. We'll come back to NEM. So let's look at Bitcoin. So we had the big pull. This is the daily chart. By the way, guys, a quick aside here. So I've been looking at charts all day long. This is a late edition video for me, late my night / evening, and I was at a little bit of a training today, some advanced trading patterns and strategies. And I just want to say that because I've been doing this for, I don't know, 17 years now, and I still try to learn as much as I can. There's just always something to learn. There's always something to review, to get better at doing. And so I just want to encourage you guys. If some of you guys are new, I know a lot of you have taken my trading course here recently. These things take time and they take practice, and you never want to get to the point where you feel like you know it all, like you've got it down 100%, because you can always improve. And I'm always trying to get better at what I do here. Always reading good books on trading, rereading books that I've read in the past. I'm going to seminars like I did today, and just investing in my knowledge and investing in myself. And I encourage you guys to continue to do the same. Again, if you're in this for the long term, sure, these trades could help in the short term, but this is a skill that you develop that will help you, for a long time. So just a quick thought there, just because I've been staring at charts and candlesticks all day, and I'm looking at this going, oh man, my eyes are starting to get a little blurry here. But anyway, just a quick thought I want to share with you guys. But looking at the chart of Bitcoin, Bitcoin is actually consolidating nicely here. It's not really doing anything major or drastic, but this is the daily chart. It's kind of just riding this shorter term 10 EMA, which is very bullish. It's kind of putting in a little bit of a flag right here. And again, if you got the newsletter, the area I pointed out was 2,900. I'd really like to see this clear. You can take an early trade if it gets above this 2,850 area, and we're bouncing into the 2,800 now, so it's getting close. So look for that. That's the zone I'm looking at on Bitcoin to the upside. If we can get above that, you might see another leg up to Bitcoin. The all-time high is basically at 3,000, but there's been a lot of resistance here, so I think if we get above this resistance, we'll quickly move past the old all-time high. So that's what the level I'm looking at on Bitcoin. On the downside, really, there's just this little trend forming. You probably don't want to see this broken to the downside. The key moving averages should hold. So that's where I'm at with Bitcoin. It's not super strong here, but it's not bad either. But I think post BCash debacle, Bitcoin was kind of the stealing the show, and this is the one to watch. And now we're kind of past that. I'm not watching it as much. It's kind of weird. I'm just kind of looking at it and going, okay, it's doing its thing now, and I'm just really now focused on the altcoins that I'm really interested in. I'm still holding some Bitcoin, but it's just, you know, not really the key driver in all the markets anymore. It will be as a leader, but it's just the altcoins are moving ahead is all I'm saying on their own. Let's look at Ethereum. So looking at Ethereum again, not as strong. We're not anywhere near the old all-time highs, but this one is also flagging out a little bit here. So if we zoom in a little bit, you know, the area to really keep an eye on here is this, you know, this little 240 to 250 zone that we've been seeing a lot of resistance in here recently, but you know, we're putting in a pretty good little flag. If we look at the candle bodies here and just tighten this up a little bit more, this is going to resolve itself here in the next couple of days. You're not going to want to see this downtrend broken, and so this moving average or this trend line would be a pretty good stop. So that's basically going to be around the 200 to the low 200 area, 210 around there. But you want to see these moving averages start to cross back up to the upside, and again, the level I'm watching here is really this 240 area. You know, there's this big selling candle here at the 250, 260 range, but that was a single day. That's definitely going to be considered, but you know, just in recent past, this is really the level. So you don't have to wait for it to get above this level to call it a breakout per se. So look at it on the shorter term. You know, if you look at the 4-hour chart, very strong. I mean, we had the big bars here, very nice constructive pullback, and then more big up bars here to the upside. So it's definitely being accumulated here, and it's really tightening up here, which is going to be real interesting to see what happens over the next couple of days. So I think another move is imminent. Whether it's up or down, we'll see. My vote's to the upside. I think it's kind of building some strength here. So again, just kind of look at these levels here in the near term. If you like Ethereum, no buy signal yet. I mean, you could have bought it here on the pullback with the pop. That was definitely a good entry. I know some of you have already taken that, and you've kind of messaged me and said it's working out so far. So I think hold tight. You might get another leg up here soon. Let's take a look at Litecoin. So Litecoin is interesting here. Let's zoom out at the daily pattern, right? So on the daily charts, initially we were looking at this head and shoulder potential, never really materialized, but now what it's doing is kind of forming this, let me get this line out of the way here for you. It's forming this little wedge right now, and you can look at it two ways, right? You can look at it as just a continuation pattern from the longer term trend that's really just tightening up here, and it's going to make a move here pretty soon, because this is very rarely do they get to the apex before they resolve themselves. So we'll know in the next day or two what the next move is going to be. So on the upside, you know, a break above this trend line will be a signal, and if you want to be conservative, just, you know, the 44.50 area is really the area to look at, and then above that 48, 47. But if we get above this, this is really going to be a positive sign. Now if we get below this trend line, may not be a sell yet. I mean, if you want to be conservative and give it to the bottom of these candle wicks, you know, you can let it go all the way down to 38 and change. I'm not sure if I personally would, but you know, that's on the downside. You can look at it that way. Looking at the bearish case for this, which I'm not really too keen on Litecoin here, but you know, you can make the argument that, hey, this is a little bit of a descending triangle. You know, you got the right angle here, and it's starting to descend, and the bottom's flat. But you know, this more recent higher low here kind of invalidates that. But it's still something I'm considering. So Litecoin is forming an interesting pattern here. We'll know soon enough. I think it'll probably edge out here just because the market seems to want to be moving up now. Litecoin during the entire correction served as a great port in the storm here. I mean, it was pretty much up to flat while everything was just tanking. So certainly held up well, did its job in preserving some of the gains that I was holding and moved into Litecoin. So I've lightened up a little bit. I still have some Litecoin, and I'm just going to watch it here. But right now, most of my capital's kind of been deployed into some of these altcoins I've really been watching. So let's move into some of those. So I'm going to show you guys the Twitter feed here. And that's the thing with some of these is they just move fast. A lot can happen in a day. And so late yesterday, you know, I sent a tweet out saying, you know, OmiseGo, OMG, was breaking out, and you know, this was just forming a very nice pattern. Let's open up that chart. this was forming a very nice, very bullish, and probably one of my favorite patterns to trade. This is, you know, a typical ascending triangle. And here's the thing with these ascending triangles. So this is a little bit of a learning lesson. If you're looking at these patterns, notice how this had this strong run up and then it pulled back and it starts to consolidate. You do not need to wait for it to break these old highs to call it a breakout. And very often these patterns will consolidate below the highs and really tighten up, and then they break out. And so that was your entry signal there. And really it was this bar below, and that's a little bit more advanced early signals that you can look at based on, you know, just some of the volume and moving averages. But if you wanted to wait, you could have waited till this bar, and that was your entry to say, hey, this is going, you know. And it was basically $1.50 at that point, and literally within hours it was up to 180 or so. We'll see where it's at right now. Let's take a look. So it's wow, 237. So powerful move to the upside. I mean, if you look at the breakout point, pretty much 76%. So 76% in a day. No one's going to argue against that. Powerful move. If you're not in it now, what to do? I mean, this is pretty much hitting all-time highs. This is a smaller cap name, so I could see it running further. But at this point, there's just no telling, right? I mean, it could pull back here and just keep bouncing off this 10 EMA, which is very typical when they're strong. They'll just kind of follow the 10 EMA. So if you're looking for an entry point, look for one of these little patterns here. See how it kind of had this huge green bar and then had this pullback? These are great pullback buys. So when you see these little pullbacks here, this is your buy signal. And so the way you play these here, let me zoom in to kind of really show you guys, is you look at the top of that candle here with the wick, and then you look at the bottom of these, and notice how these lows are just really tight right here. I mean, they're almost all at the same point, and it's just really waiting for this moving average to catch up. When you see this thing break out above these recent tops here, that's really your signal. And or you can take it off the moving averages if the volume is really high. So like in this case, right, where the volume just starts coming in, that's the way you look at it. But at this point, it could keep going. I don't think it will. I think it'll pull back a little bit, or at least flag out again, and then let this moving average catch up a little bit. But I'm holding mine. I mean, it's just a good one right now. The project is real interesting. I think it's got some good potential. You know, I got in pretty early on this one, so this one is definitely in the profit. Doesn't hurt to take profits if you want to, if you picked this one up yesterday, but I'm going to hold this one for a little bit longer, and maybe add some more if it pulls back decently. So OMG, very strong here. Let's take a look at Ant shares. So I'm going to start calling it NEO, even though the symbol is still ANS for a little bit, but Ant shares NEO. So guys, if you've been watching me for a while, I've been talking about this one, and the patience is starting to pay off here. And this one has actually been a very nice, very strong pattern during this correction. I mean, it was just really consolidating. You know, these moves here are actually pretty big moves. This is like a 90% move, and then this pullback. So I'm not discounting that, but you know, looking at the bigger scheme on the daily charts especially, was just setting up very nice. I mean, just very bullish. So, you know, and again, these move fast. I sent out a tweet yesterday. Let's go back to the Twitter feed here, and shortly after OMG, I sent out this chart of NEO saying we're pretty much there. This is looking like it's gonna break out. You know, we're basically consolidating. Let's see if we can get above this trend resistance. And so that's the key again here. So you don't need to wait for these horizontal lines to be crossed. That's a good confirmation in the secondary buy, but you know, when you're looking at these trends, right, you don't need to wait for this old high to be taken out before you say I'm buying. An early entry is this trend break when you see these trends set up like that. So let's zoom in a little bit here. So here's on the 4-hour, you know, there's this trend that's been forming on the downside and on the upside, and really this signal was the pre-fork break. I mean, this big pop happened before the actual Bitcoin fork on August 1st. So this was a few hours before enters just started running really quick. So I actually added to my position during this little run up, and anticipating a little bit of a breakout, but sure enough, it hit the resistance. And so at that point, you're just kind of on red alert. You're watching this to see what happens. And there it goes, that big green candle above. That's your buy signal. You don't need to wait for it to get this high. And you get in early and look at the big run up you have. And what typically happens is it's pulling in now. And it'll pull in and it will probably hold at this point. And so that will likely become your support zone. Maybe a bit above that since the moving average is now exceeding that. But that's very often what tends to happen, is that old resistance point becomes support. And so if you're liking NEO, if you missed it, again, this peak here is also hitting old resistance point. So if we zoom back a little bit here, you can see here from this point to this point, we're right there, and that's very expected. I mean, it was kind of, you know, that was really the target to the upside. I didn't think this would be much of a resistance point. This definitely was going to be a resistance point. That was a major selling point when it first had that bounce off the lows, but I don't think that is the high. I think that's just a pause right here, because that's really the old resistance point. So that's typically what you expect. That's a signal that all the traders are looking at, a good place to take profit, and that's what you're seeing. You're seeing some profit taking right at that point. So not surprising at all. So the next level is if you can get above this red candle, if you want to buy on the pullback, which that's typically how I play these. Once they're that strong, I like to buy on the pullback. You don't need to wait for another breakout, because the breakout happened already. So it's the expectation is it's running and it's going to continue. So you buy on the pullback now, and you buy on this, you know, if it hits this line, this area right here, and your downside risk is low, because if it breaks below and if it starts to break below the moving average, then you cut your loss. You don't need to wait till it gets back up here to buy. So that's how I typically play these. So if you're looking to add, or if you missed the run up, you're looking for secondary entry point, that's your entry point there. But the project, I really like the project. I think it's got huge potential going forward. And I expect this to hit these old all-time highs on the Bitcoin chart. And those old highs on BTC will translate into much higher highs than it previously was on the dollar side, because Bitcoin is just that much higher now than when Ant-Shares hit this old high. So very strong, moving nicely. I hope you guys were with me on this one. I know some of you were, but hold tight. I'm expecting more things to come from this one. What else? Let's look at NEM. So NEM has been super strong. And I'm a little underinvested in NEM here. I was really watching it closely. I was pointing it out here at these lower levels. I was holding some, and then I just saw it pop, and it really just kind of ran away. I was focused on NEO and some of these others, and NEM is now finally pulling in, which is, you know, that's expected. The volume's coming down, so a very constructive pullback. So this is not cause for alarm. When you see these pullbacks, that's normal profit taking. That's you know, after a big run up like this, very normal. So what I'd be looking at is, you know, it's breached this shorter term moving average now, and so the next level is probably going to be this area. Now if you want to do a Fibonacci retracement on these, let's see how that looks. So if we look at the run up, we do a Fibonacci, and you know, this is not my normal settings, because I usually take this 23 line off and some of these other ones which aren't really strong ratios, and the 50 is not really a Fibonacci. So right now we're right at the 38.2, so that may be it. That may be where it pauses here and starts going back up. The next level could be this moving average, which kind of correlates with the 0.5, and then below that this 0.618, which, you know, it's basically this old resistance, but personally I don't think it'll get that low. We'll see. So this may be a good potential entry. If you start to see this bounce up, especially if we can get above this last red candle here. So let me kind of draw that for you guys. If you can get above this little area, that'll probably be a good reversal on the pullback, and may start another leg up. So NEM also is a project that's really making some changes and making some strides here in the coming months. And so I think they're going to start to get more traction and more attention, and I think we'll see higher NEM prices. So it's going to be a good one to keep an eye on. And notice a lot of these that are really strong are platforms. You look at NEO, you look at Stratus, you look at NEM as a platform, and so you're looking at these, and that's, I believe, is where we're going to see a lot of strength in the cryptocurrency space, because things are going to just be moving into the blockchain. I mean, there's just going to be so many use cases for blockchain technology, and a lot of these platforms are going to enable businesses and startups and just people to do things on the blockchain without having to create new blockchains. And so I think a lot of these platforms are really going to be the big winners. So let's look at Stratus. A couple more here before we wrap it up. So Stratus also consolidating nicely, had the big bar, big move up. That's your signal. So that's your early signal saying start watching this one here again. It was kind of bearish, pulling in a little bit. It had the big rally off the lows, kind of pulling in. But now it's looking very constructive. The moving averages are all turning up again. Had the big volume, which is what you want to see, and now just very tight. So Stratus looks like it's about to bust out here. So keep an eye on Stratus. Again, watch these moving averages. You don't want to let it get too far below this recent consolidation. But I just see a lot of good accumulation happening here. So if you can get above this little area on Stratus, probably have another leg up. This next area here is going to be your resistance, because that was probably a pretty good sell here. But that resistance, kind of correlates. It's in the zone. It's not exact, but it correlates with what was previously this support area, and we're kind of there now, which is why it's pausing here. So if you look at this, there was this prior very solid support, and once it broke, just really sold off. We bounce, overshot it a little bit, now pulling in, consolidating. And so these are the levels to watch, and if we can get above this, I think you're going to see another run on Stratus. Two more real quick before we get going. Let's look at EOS. I've been talking about EOS. Let's see what it's doing here. I'm going to pull up the USD chart first. So EOS really tightening up here. It's gonna, this is a little bit of a neutral pattern, right? It's very symmetrical, meaning not bullish but not bearish either. So it's kind of one of those next move wins. You can see it's kind of edging out here a little bit. So if we look at the wicks on the candles here, you can still give it a little bit of room, but look at how tight that pattern's getting. I mean, that's very tight. It tried to break out here. You can see this big volume bar. Try to get above, and that was just all selling right here. So keep an eye on it. It's neutral. It could go either way here. I have a little bit invested here, and if it breaks out, this could potentially be another adder. This project's interesting because it's got a lot of headwinds from a supply perspective. They're just releasing new coins basically on a daily basis, and for the next several months. So that may be an issue, but this pattern is just real interesting, real tight. It may be good for a good trade, like I said. If it breaks above, you can see a run up to this point here, which if we do that, that's going to be, it's going to be 20%, and that'll be hitting a couple of resistance points. So if you look at this, old supports and multiple resistance points here. So it would make sense that we could run up to about there and then pause. And if we get above that, you'll have another leg up, and that'll take you to right around here. And so let's look at the kind of the areas to look at there. So if we break out here, you're looking at potentially 15, maybe a little higher percent, so 15%. And if we can get above that, it could go as high as 30, 40, maybe 50%, not right away, but over several legs up. But those are the areas I'm watching on EOS, but it's really tightening up here, so one to watch. And one more is IOTA. So I've been looking at IOTA here, looking very strong. Again, this one broke out here in the last couple days, and I had already picked some up on this signal, which was an early signal again. And so that was this first bar here, which that was basically the pre-fork, and it started to run just like ant shares. And then it paused and just did a very nice consolidation, very low volume, down to the moving averages, and started to tighten up. And that was your signal when it popped off this moving average here. And so I started adding some more, and so far it's working out. Now, a couple of trades that did not work out for me. And I just want to be open with you guys, is, not all of these work out. No one's perfect. We make losses, and I was being really cheap twice in the last couple of days, and it cost me. The first one was with NEM. It started to pull in a little bit, and I put in a buy order, but I was being a little too cheap, and my buy order was literally like half a penny below where the price was, and I was going, no, it's gonna get filled, and I was not willing to budge. Well, it never got filled, and then the price just took off, and so I just let that one go. Then the other one, and I know some of you guys might think I'm crazy or I'm anti-Bitcoin for doing this, but the other one was Bitcoin Cash. And so, everybody was dumping it. I expected it to pop. So I had some on Bittrex. Let me get to the chart to show you guys. So I had some on Bittrex, right? And it pretty much started to run on its first day. Let's do the hourlies here. And sorry here. And it started to run. So I had this nice little run right here, and then it started to pull back. And I thought, this thing's gonna go. This thing's gonna have another leg up. Everyone's gonna dump it, and it's gonna surprise everybody and run. And so what I ended up doing was I bought not a bunch, but I bought a pretty sizable position of BCash. Sold out a couple of other things and just bought pretty much a little speculative trade on the anticipation that it was going to break out above this little pattern here. And it was pretty much late in the evening, and I was not wanting to watch this all night, so I made my purchase, and then I said, I'm not going to let it go too much further if it just decides to dump here, so I'm going to put my stop right below that most recent candle here. And you can see exactly what it did. It pulled back just below my stop, undercut me, stopped me out, and then had a nice run. I woke up the next day, I was looking at the prices going, I'm selling this thing, and I looked, and turns out I didn't have any more. never got back in, so missed out on that one. And once it hit this, I saw the big candle wick, and I said, it's gone, it's too late, it's gonna probably start pulling in, and just left it. So it was a short-term speculative trade that almost worked out, but not quite. So you can't catch them all, guys. Just be patient, wait for the setups, look for the breakouts, and in the long run, you'll be okay. That's going to be it for now, guys. Until next time, take care.